Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Zena Muzyka has a resume that could put so many to shame. She's an award-winning, purpose-driven social entrepreneur, teacher, author, executive coach, public speaker, and former publisher. But what you don't know about her yet is her passion is serving others. And being an activist for women's rights is what drives her. She is also the enrolling visionary behind fair trade teas being in the big box stores everywhere. Now, as an immigrant from a family of gypsies, she has been on a mission to serve others since she was a little girl. When at 25, she became a single mom to a son with a birth defect, she surrendered to prayer for what she was called to do next. Seeing a tea party in that moment shifted her entire future. Join in today and learn exactly how Zena Muzyka levels up continually and creates everything from nothing. Today, I'm here with Zena Muzyka, and she's a social entrepreneur and an activist for women's rights in developing countries. And even greater, she's a pioneer of fair trade. In fact, she is the one that got fair trade teas into a lot of the big names. So Zena, thank you so much for being here with me today. I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
So there's so much on your resume right now. There's so many things that we could say that you do. In fact, I asked you before we even started if you met someone at a party and they said, "What do you do?" And you listed out like a lot of entrepreneurs do. One of those, like, it depends on the day.
Well, we're like, don't pin us down. We're entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Don't put me in a box.
Yeah.
But who were you before all this? Because you're so well known. You've done so many amazing things, but who were you before all this?
Well, I started out, my family's immigrant from the Ukraine, and I started out in a little town, and my grandmother had escaped concentration camp. She was quite remarkable, and she taught me herbal medicine, and she taught me how to heal anything with herbs and things that you could grow in your own yard. And she was my mentor. Her name was Musica. And what happened was, as I grew up, there weren't a lot of opportunities where I lived, and I received a full scholarship from an all-women's college in the Midwest. And I went out there and I found the power of sisterhood in a big way. And so the all-women's college is owned by a secret sisterhood. They fund all the women going, and we had to take a vow to protect other women when we got there. And I thought, wow, this is intense, amazing. I wonder how I'm going to use this. And so the theme of my life has really been about helping women. And when I asked them how I could repay them for my college education, they said, empower other women, support other women, and protect other women. So I was like, okay, I'm in. So what happened was when I left school, I went and studied herbal medicine in Peru, and I wanted to write a story. I wanted to write my grandmother's story of how she had escaped, so many terrible situations in during World War II and after. And I got a creative writing grant. I moved into a really inexpensive little cabin. I was living off the grid. I wrote the book about my grandmother's history. And just as I was finishing it, I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I was single. I mean, I was, I had a love interest, but I was pretty single. And my son was born, and he had a really severe birth defect in his kidneys. And I had no resources. The dad didn't give us any resources. He kind of just, he was present, but not financially present. And I was 25, had just turned 25.
Whoa.
I had this child who had special needs, needed all these operations. I went to go try to get better health insurance to help cover this. And the health insurance company said, "Oh, birth defects are pre-existing conditions. We can't help you."
Whoa.
So I
just bam, 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 like one thing after the next.
Yeah. And it was life or death for real. And so what happened then was, I basically got on my knees like we all do when we're at the bottom. And I said, okay, God, show me what you want me to do. I'll do anything. I swear. Just give me some instructions. And I saw a tea party, and not a normal thing to
Right.
see, but my grandmother was gypsy, and that was why her story was so fascinating. And she taught me herbal medicine and herbal concoctions and herbal teas. And so I thought, oh, I'll throw a gypsy tea party to celebrate my grandmother's life and to create teas, that she taught me how to make. And I threw one locally, and I brought all the botanicals I had grown out of my yard, and 300 people showed up. I sold out of tea within an hour, and I was in business. And within a couple years, I was doing 2.5, then 3.5 million, then 4.5 million, then 5.5 billion, then 6 million, then 7 million, then 8 million, and I got up to about 12 million. I was able to fund my son's surgeries. I was able to really become empowered myself in business. And what happened was, when I discovered that the tea workers in the tea fields weren't, they had, no medical care. They had high infant mortality rates and all of that. I decided to make that my mission. And so the women who put me through school, their voices rang in my head, and they said, protect other women. And I thought, okay, it's on.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have so many questions right now. You just gave us so much information in like 2 seconds. Okay. I gotta back up, because I'm like, okay, coming up for me. Let's start with the grandmother and the concentration camp. Now, you said gypsy. So I'm assuming she wasn't Jewish. She was a gypsy, and that's why she was there.
Well, a Jew married a gypsy, and that's my family.
Okay. So we married a gypsy. So for those of you that don't know gypsy, there's a little bit of it's like a modern day woo-woo today, right?
Yeah, it's basically they're a culture. They are they're not a particular race. They're from all over the world. They are a particular race, but they live everywhere. And so they originated in India about 900 years ago, and then they migrated, and they have, they're called Roma, is the traditional name. And people have called them gypsies because they thought they originated from Egypt. And then it became somewhat of a derogatory term. And then it became basically a marketing term. So gypsies are a culture that doesn't see any one country as their home. They see the whole world as their home. They are mostly, the religion is female centric. So they believe in Saint Sarah, and they worship her.
So it's actually a religion. It's actually a religion.
Well, my grandmother was Greek Orthodox, so it can be anything. But it's kind of like if you are from a certain region and then you live in other places, you always carry those sort of beliefs with you. And so gypsies are kind of like Jewish, but their religion is basically adapted for wherever they live. But there are a certain race of people that originated out of India.
Okay. So she's in a concentration camp. She escaped. So I'm imagining you as a child were hearing stories about this.
Oh my God. Well, and my great aunt Zena, who I'm named after, was still in the Ukraine, who stayed. She was the only one that stayed and survived. Turns out she became the queen of her village. And
your grandmother or your aunt?
My aunt. She was queen of the gypsies. And so because she had 2 cows and she was an entrepreneur, so I was like, all right, you named me well, Grandma.
Okay. 2 cows and an entrepreneur. Got it.
But basically, so the gypsy culture, I was fascinated by it. I wanted to write about it. And then it ended up becoming a business. So I started Zena's Gypsy Tea. It got big and it was really fun. I threw gypsy tea parties all over with belly dancing and tea leaf readers and women's empowerment. And I educated people on fair trade and basically how the workers in the tea fields didn't have a voice, and we charged a little extra, and we got them healthcare, maternity leave. We built schools. We got them equal rights. It's a really incredible program.
No, it sounds absolutely incredible. So I'm trying to like just unwind it a little bit or peel back the layers just so I can understand where this because it's so powerful. So many things that you said here that are really gold for people listening. So first and foremost, I love the connection. So you grew up hearing stories from your grandmother. So you felt a calling towards that, and you felt a connection towards what they taught.
Well, and I wanted to tell the story of the gypsies because gypsies are thought of as thieves, and they're really not. People love to call themselves gypsies if they're like, oh yeah, I love to travel, I'm a gypsy. But the actual culture, they're marginalized and things aren't fair for them. Sure. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the stigma away from the name and make it beautiful.
So I'm assuming as a child, you kind of had this vision somehow about this a little bit, but you didn't really know what it was going to turn into. Is that correct?
I know that I could combine my culture and give it dignity again. And I could combine the tea potions and the herbal medicine. My grandmother was a healer, and somehow do something with it, but I never knew what. So when I was writing the book about her, I basically realized that throughout history, gypsies have been both marginalized and the ones that people would go to for beauty and dance and music and healing. And so I thought, wow, why is this culture so, tamped down and treated poorly when really they bring so many gifts to the world? And it really was reliant on poverty. And so, so when I heard about the women in the tea fields going through the same thing, they were basically plucking tea 9,000 miles away from us in the US and making less than $1 a day and had no advocate. I was like, wow, so the tea workers are kind of like gypsies, and
no, totally.
we have to fight for them. And, I'm a little street fighter. I think you're a fighter too. So
I'm gonna dive back into, I want to know more about the tea and that calling, but there's a little bit of a gap here that I want to fill, because I want to get really clear on this. So you grow up with these stories, you feel a connection to it. You like what your grandmother, what your aunt stood for. You know this, but now you're going through school, you're studying herbal medicine and you're creative writing, and you find out you're pregnant, which is right at 25, which I can only imagine how scary at being a single mom at 25. And then you have a special needs son. So when this was happening, when you were going through that, before you knew that what you were going to turn kind of that pain into and what that was happening, what was going through your mind? Like, did you feel empowered? Did you feel helpless? Like, what was your state during that time?
I felt scared. I felt that no one, I wasn't very close with my family at the time. And my grandmother had passed away, and I kind of had gone against, what they thought I should do. And then getting pregnant without being married was a really big problem. And so I was alone. I was really isolated and I was scared. And what ended up happening, I wrote a book about it. It's called Life by the Cup.
Okay.
And it talks about how I learned, the number one thing I learned to do was I learned to ask for help. And I had this neighbor who had these incredible gardens full of food. And she basically would bring food over, and we got close. And I told her about my dream to start a tea party celebrating the gypsy culture that would help mothers in the tea fields. And it turned out she was the heiress to a big fortune, even though she looked like a hippie. And she said, I want to help you. Let's invest.
Don't judge a book by its cover. You never know.
Absolutely. And we became really close, and she helped me. I started with just a little tea cart and I basically would go around with it and serve tea and at events. And I would throw these gypsy tea parties with belly dancers, because I loved the model of belly dancing, that it was like if you had a belly, it was healthy and it was a celebration of femininity. So I just kind of tied it all together, and it
sounds like
crazy.
you were kind of like living in your vision, but you didn't even really know what that was going to create for you at the time.
It was very courageous to throw a gypsy tea party in the little town where I live. People were like, "What's that?" I was like, "I don't know, just show up." And I put flyers up everywhere. And I was like, okay. And I got all my belly dancing friends to come and perform, and I traded tea, and I got all jewelry designers to bring their jewelry, and I traded, and I just charged them a percentage. And all of a sudden I made like $1,000 in an hour. And I was like, whoa, this is like the most money I've seen in a long time. And
imagine you're doing it to help fund and pay for your son, right?
It was the whole point. I mean,
but you didn't know it was going to turn into what it was turning into.
No, it was survival.
What do you think you attribute that part to? Like, before we even get into how it got into 12 million.
Absolutely service. Okay. It was with a mission to serve, you cannot fail. I was doing it for someone other than myself. I was doing it for my child. I was doing it for women, really. And I was doing it to honor my grandmother. And so I think anytime that I've gotten in recent years, as I've been successful and started all, more businesses and other things, I've looked at the times when I have, stubbed my toes, fallen down, not done a good job. It's really when I was self-centered or super focused.
Yeah. Ego.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I find that when I look back, it was, I had no other option. So it was success or nothing. And I had, I couldn't really move back in with my parents with a baby. It just wasn't going to work. It was not a healthy environment. And so it was like, make it or die, really.
So, and what's interesting about this is I'm assuming, and I don't know, but I'm assuming you didn't really care what anyone else thought when you were doing this.
At that point, no. And that was really powerful because people were like, what? Your plan is to have a gypsy party? That's how you're going to save your kid? You should
I would imagine
on, like, something's wrong. Yeah. But then when 1,000 people, or 300 people showed up to the first one and everybody was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, there's a celebration of women's bodies. People are laughing. People are having fun. Everyone's displaying their art. People are buying things from each other. They're drinking tea. There's music. Like people were like, wow, this is actually really special. Like we want to do more of these. And so I started doing gypsy tea parties all over, like even in grocery stores, like Whole Foods put them in all their stores at one point. And it was a celebration of women, and it was a celebration of the fierce feminine, but it was also to fund the feminine. It was also
so beautiful. Yeah. So how does this go from a tea party to Whole Foods, $1,000 to $2.5 million to $5 million to like, how does that even happen?
It was the products. Coconut chai was like my bestseller, raspberry Earl Grey, gypsy rose. Like I have these incredible blends and potions that I would formulate in my kitchen, and people fell in love with them. I used essential oils instead of flavors, and I made them really spectacular, and people would taste them and then they wanted more. And so what happened was I kept needing to raise more money because we were growing like a hockey stick. And then the grocery store chains discovered me. Whole Foods discovered me at a trade show, and they asked if I would go into the stores, and I absolutely said yes. And so I had to go to banks. No one would give me a loan, so I raised private investment money, and I got it pretty. I think we were valued at 25 million, and then I got these big investors from New York to come in, and they brought some money in, like, not a lot, maybe $1 million or $2 million. And then it was, then the economic crash happened, and I was like, crap. I was doing a massive launch at the time into all the Whole Foods with an exclusive biodynamic product for them. And then I had to raise like $4.5 million in emergency money. So I lost the majority of my company.
Whoa.
I stayed on for another 6 years and then left. They did they made a ton of mistakes, which is common. And they did a bunch of diet teas. And I know you're a weight
I don't talk about diet teas. Yeah,
exactly. And I was so against them. I was like, oh my God, you're going to make people sick. Like this is terrible.
Not into it.
I left the company. Over that. And what ended up happening was my publisher, Simon & Schuster, loved my marketing chops, loved my book, and they offered me my own imprint. So I became a publisher there for 4.5 years. And then I just left that a few months ago. And now I combine tea and transformational media in my new company called Magic Hour.
Okay, before we even get into Magic Hour, talk to me about your son because
he's amazing.
But how did you also, like, as an entrepreneur being busy doing this, manage that?
Okay, so his dad wasn't around financially, but he was around physically. So he would take care of him while I would do trade shows. Which was great. So it was, I had to earn the money to pay for everything, and he was physically present. So that was where I had a huge advantage.
Yeah, you had a support system, right?
Absolutely. There. Yeah. And so Sage had 3 major operations, and I was able to pay everything. And then finally I had enough employees to get health insurance where he could be part of it. And it really was a game changer. And now he is 19, and he's my photographer for my company, and he's beautiful and healthy, and it's an ongoing thing. We have to maintain his health, but it's he's a spectacular, wise, beautiful young man.
Now, talk to me now about the fair trade thing, because first and foremost, a lot of listeners don't even know what that means. So can you share what fair trade means and why this became important to you?
Oh no, fair trade is everything. So basically, if you go to a grocery store and you see something that's fair trade certified, you basically know that the workers are receiving a fair wage. You basically know that the that the, like if it's coffee, that there's a base amount that they're getting for their product, because what happens is when it's a commodity, the global auctions, like a hedge fund manager in New York can actually dictate what happens to a commodity. Like he can, and what happens is that the workers who are actually on the ground can basically lose everything where they can feed their children. So fair trade guarantees them a living wage. It guarantees them a fair amount for their products. And it also guarantees that there's no child labor. They aren't exposed to harsh chemicals. They're allowed to unionize and advocate for themselves. They're also given guaranteed maternity leave and health care.
I love that.
It is the answer to ending poverty in so many ways. And it's something everybody can do in the grocery store every day or online.
How does it end poverty? Explain that.
Well, basically, so the women in the tea fields, when I discovered it, they were making about $1.25 a day. And they had to produce 8 kilograms in order to make that $1.25.
I can't even imagine.
And 8 kilograms of tea come to find is when I would go to the tea fields and work with them, I realized it was 2,000 plex per kilo.
Wow.
So 16,000 plex. And they're wearing these baskets on their head on these steep mountain terrains. There's no bathrooms. There's no healthcare. There's no lunch breaks. There's nothing. They're producing this 8 kilos. They're getting it to the factory, getting it weighed, and then they get their $1.25. They then, where do they go to live? They were living in shanties. They were living 5 to a room. They were living in, it was unbelievable.
And treated like animals, really.
Very much, with no dignity, no bathrooms, no healthcare, nothing. So fair trade basically goes in and says, okay, you as a tea estate have to qualify. You have to guarantee maternity leave, education, no child labor. You have to guarantee housing. You have to guarantee this and that. And then you can be certified fair trade. And that is why it's so important for us to choose fair trade, because if it's not certified fair trade, I mean, sometimes it can come from a small grower, and that's fine. Like the small growers are, they can't afford to, necessarily build new schools every year, or they can't do this or that, but they're still working hard at it. But unless you know where your products are coming from, you don't really know what the are. It's oh my gosh, that way with fast fashion.
So nobody buy tea that's not fair trade anymore.
It's absolutely,
Keepers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then good for you. You took a stance. You said you got the fair trade tea.
Yeah, basically
mega retailers.
Once I figured out like, wow, this is a problem and this can be fixed. And all I need is a lot of sales, because it's sales driven. So I was like, wow, I'm a pretty small company. What if I went to Walmart and educated them on it? What if I went to Kroger and Super Value and Safeway? So I just started meeting with the executive teams and showing them videos I had made and pictures I had taken in the non-fair trade gardens and the fair trade gardens. And the fair trade gardens, once they saw the difference physically, they were like, oh my God, like we have to help. Like we're in. And they jumped in. And they started helping. Awesome. Walmart was awesome. Kroger was amazing. I mean, they built my business insane. Like
what I love about you and what I keep hearing this theme around is it's like you didn't have to really sell anything because you were enrolling people in your vision constantly.
Yeah.
Like you saw a mission, a vision, and people followed it.
Absolutely. And I always say too, when I do keynotes or whatever, with the mission to serve, you cannot fail. And I wasn't selling tea. I was selling hope, and the tea came with it.
Gosh, it's so good. I love this. This is so many light bulb moments here. And what a great example for your son, and also just for women in general. And
my daughter now.
Oh my gosh, your daughter now. Amazing. And then your grandmother would be so proud. Wow.
Yeah, I can feel her around me when I'm doing things right.
Yeah, no, that's really incredible. So I love all of this. So, okay. So you've made a huge impact in the world as far as fair trade, for being an advocate for all of us. Now I understand why you gave me the list of things that you do. What do you want people to know about you right now? Like what do you stand for? What do you want? What do you want to see? What's your vision?
Yeah. I mean, what I'm doing now is, so what happens with most female founders in business is when they receive professional money, about 95% of them will get kicked out of their company within a year.
Really? Why is that?
It's because, well, it's changing now that we've had Me Too in the last year and a half. But basically what happens is investors tend to think that founders are not smart enough, or that they're just passionate, or, this or that. And so what ends up happening is the founder often gets depleted and overworked, and then they ask the founder to leave. And what I noticed is there's a trend with women not being able to ask for their worth, not being able to actually embody their worth and demand it. And so I really, right now, my mission is not only, I have Club Magic Hour, which I'll tell you about, but my mission is really to help women understand what they're worth and how to ask for it, how to embody it, and how to move through the world knowing their worth.
Yeah. You know what? This is really interesting right here, because I think what I'm hearing you say and what's coming up for me is, so women have been I'm generalizing right now, but this is very common. Women are generally, we're taught that we're maybe not as good as men. Like, we're not as smart as men. So then,
or we're not worth as much.
We're not worth as much. And then a female starts a business. I'm a female that started a business. So we start a business. And then when we have any kind of struggle, we look for the rescuer. That it's just like in our DNA a lot of times. So then you find an investor, they come in.
Well, it was either that or close my business down. Ooh. So I did a deal with Whole Foods, and I had to buy futures on a specific tea and so I was about $3.5 million into I basically bought 2 years of a garden's yield. I had to prepay for it to guarantee I would have it. And then when Whole Foods never reordered, they basically, when the economy slipped, they were like, oops, sorry, you can't do premium tea. We got to focus on staying in business. Yeah. So I was stuck with $3.5 million worth of tea that I couldn't sell.
So here you thought you had this great opportunity and this great help, and then it's like it crumbles away.
Absolutely. And what I would have done better now that I look back at that is I would have gotten them basically legally bound in a way. But back then it was like, oh my God, you're going into Whole Foods. Oh my God, Whole Foods wants an exclusive with you. Oh my God, do whatever. And what I noticed is I would always discount myself. So I didn't, because I wanted the sale so bad.
You wanted the approval too. Like, look at who's approving me.
Exactly. Because I wanted all of that so badly, I compromised my own worth. And that's what cost me at the end of the day. And that's what I'm up to.
What a powerful lesson in that. And I think there's a lot of women listening that do that.
Absolutely. We do it subtly as well. I coach a lot of women. I have a program called Power of Platform. And what happens is I look at them and I go, okay, well, how much are you charging? And they almost like their shoulders raise, like, oh, I'm charging like $175 an hour. And I'm like, oh my God, what can we do to get you to $375? Like, let's look at, I could never ask that. I'm like, no, you can't ask that. Like, we can ask that. We can create, hyper value. And
sure,
if we don't know it in our system, in our body, I mean, you're such an embodiment of it. I was listening to your podcast and looking at your videos, and I'm like, oh my God, this woman is in her body. Like, you know what you are, you know what you're worth. I'm sure it was hard won, but that is, if we could get all women to stand up and be in their power like that, we would not be, beholden to the government in the ways we are. We would not be making less still in this day and age than men on average by 12 to 20 cents. We would not be, there's so much that we could do if we all banded together and created, I remember I wrote my senior thesis on a play called Lysistrata. And basically it's a Greek play, and it was pretty edgy to write my thesis on it, because it was basically that the Roman women and the Greek women were sick of war. And so they got together. The men had been warring for years. They were sick of it. They got together and they basically said, okay, how are we going to stop the war? The only power we have is sex. So we're going to all stop. we're all going to withhold. And it's this hilarious.
Oh my God. It's like feminine power though. Seriously.
Absolutely. But we're all going to withhold until they end the war. And it's this play about that. And I thought, you know what, we need to go.
It's actually probably brilliant.
we need to go Lysistrata. Like, there needs to be one day that none of us show up for work or do anything. Kind of like, a moment where people would go, holy cow, look at everything they do. Why aren't we paying them 100% of what men make? Why aren't we giving them the rights to control their own bodies? Why aren't we, like, it just feels like we have not really united in a way, because we're half the planet, if not more.
Yeah.
if we
and the planet
united,
wouldn't expand if it wasn't for us.
Absolutely. And so I feel like if we all had a sense that we were together on this and that we had the power to do it, I'm in a writer's group, and this woman last night is from Iran, and I was crying when she was reading her memoir because of what she'd been through, and how they were treated, and how backwards it all is. And we're so lucky in this country, but it's still happening everywhere. And it needs to end with us. And now that I have a daughter and I'm watching her, I'm like, you know what? We have to do more. We have to band together in more powerful ways. So I'm going to figure out how to do it. And, you can help.
Sure,
all of us can help.
No doubt that you will, because you're just on fire with stuff, and we'll add it to your list of things that you do. So tell me about Club Magic Hour. What's that?
So basically what ended up happening was I became a publisher at Simon & Schuster. I wrote a spirituality kind of motivational self-help book, Life by the Cup. And then I missed tea so much because the tea company kind of got taken away from me. And then the investors decided to close it down. And I was like, oh my God, I'd been in corporate in New York in a high rise, and I was watching everybody not really get any self-care. Like there was no time for it. And I thought, God, if I could combine spiritual teachings and amazing like masters with like a 30-minute video with tea that would come, or a ritual kit that would come to their offices every month, or their homes, and I could bring them a retreat and bring them self-care and how-tos and videos and the actual teas, then it might be amazing. And I launched it a couple months ago with my partners are Gay and Katie Hendricks, and Gay wrote The Big Leap, which is a very famous book, and they wrote Conscious Loving. And it's really all about like, how can we create rituals, not only for self-care, but for connecting to those we love? Like tea time with my husband is everything. Like we have tea time at dawn, and it is how, we just had our 13th anniversary. We're so excited about the next 13 years. We're so in love because we take the time to have tea and a ritual together. So Club Magic Hour is basically a subscription box as well as tea, and it's teachers combined with tea so that people can imbibe it and have the health and wellness in their own home. And I'm in love with it.
Well, you are the first person I've interviewed that when I said, what do you do? And you said entrepreneur, like you really are. And you do it all. You have all of that.
People go, how do you do all this? I'm like, caffeine, tea.
The caffeine in my tea.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a very sustaining caffeine. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. It's incredible.
Yeah, I just feel like we're creative. As women, we're so creative. And if we were to go for everything that we really truly want, then we're going to be the power players. That's how I think we're going to take over the world, because the way we do business is different to how other people and men do business. We do it in a way that takes care of the planet, that takes care of each other, that takes care of. And so I feel like business is the one way we can empower women all over the world to become powerhouses and gain power. And that's what's going to get us a seat at the table. It's going to be
so awesome.
Money and success.
That's so awesome. Okay. Here's something I ask every single guest that I have, and I can't wait to hear your answer on this one. So if somebody's listening right now and they're in their own personal rock bottom spot, I mean, maybe they just had the child as a single mom where they're battling with the struggle there with the birth defect, or maybe it's they had the setback in the business, like you mentioned you had when you had spent all that money and it was gone. But whatever personal rock bottom they're in, and you've actually had many of them, I can hear. What would you tell them in hindsight, looking back right now, what would you tell them 3 pieces of advice to start leveling up and creating everything from nothing?
I would say to absolutely surrender to your higher power. Basically, if you believe in God, if you believe in love, if you believe in, every time I've been the most successful with an idea, it was when I actually truly deeply surrendered to the highest good. And
what does it mean, just deeply surrender in your words?
Basically, so every morning when I wake up, I have a mantra that's basically, dear God, show me how I can serve today. And then I basically do the next right thing. I basically, like this morning, I was feeling a little overwhelmed. I have a lot going on, as you can tell.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm super overwhelmed. All right, God, show me absolutely how to serve. And it was like focus on Mother's Day, focus on rituals that moms and kids can do together and help moms have time with their kids. And I'm like, okay. So I did a post on Facebook. I got moms emailing me their rituals. Amazing stuff. Like I got excited about it. And so that is what I'm going to turn into my Mother's Day promotion. And it's to help other moms have more time with their kids. And this one woman, anyway, so that is basically just, the whole ask and you shall receive. It's true. If you ask a good question, you're going to get an amazing answer. So I ask God how I can serve, and then I follow instructions.
I love that. So you said, just like you did back before you informed your teas, you said you asked and you saw a tea party.
Absolutely. And you have to then do what you see, because sometimes you're like, I'm not throwing belly dancing tea party. People are going to think I'm insane, but then it ends up being a
I love it.
So, and then the next piece of advice I would say is, when you yourself need something, like if you're worried about money, or if you're worried about being overwhelmed or not having enough time or anything like that, when you actually help somebody have what you need, it's taught in the Diamond Sutra in Buddhism. But basically, if you go, oh my God, I'm broke, I need money, I need this, I need that. If you go and help somebody else make $1, your whole universe will start shifting. So it's kind of the law of attraction, but in action of service. So basically, instead of just visualizing yourself having more money or feeling good about what you might buy with that money, help someone else get it. Help someone else. And
I love that. It's so hard for people. So I want them to hear this though, because it feels so hard in the moment, but you're so right.
Yeah. What it does is it breaks the energetic spell. It also breaks your subconscious's hold on you that's telling you there's not enough money or there's not enough opportunity. Yeah. So what it does is it basically says, oh, really? Is that so? Well, let me see. And then boom, it proves, like, your subconscious and your psyche needs to know you're in charge of it. So it really shows that it's like, okay, I donated $1, even if it's $1 on a GoFundMe, or I went and I volunteered for an hour, or I did something kind to somebody, for somebody. All of a sudden it gets us out of our own heads, and it shows our mind and our ego that, oh, doing good does actually make good things happen. So and it sounds like it's doing for selfish ends, but it really isn't, because service becomes natural after that. So the third thing I would say is really taking time for daily rituals. Like my tea time is absolutely the time I commune with my soul. I commune with my husband, my kids. I mean, tea time, my husband just peeked in, right? Tea time, right? He's blowing me a kiss.
My husband would say, is there sex involved? That's what he would ask.
Tea time can end up being all sorts of things, but
my husband would not be down for regular tea time, I'm going to think.
You know what? I'll send you a box of coconut chai.
Okay.
Honestly, send me, because there's something magical. There's something in tea called L-theanine, and it basically makes you feel like you're a little bit drunk, but you're very, very clear.
Wow.
And amino acid that's available only in tea and mushrooms, and it makes you so happy that all sorts of wonderful things happen.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So I would say the third thing is, that daily ritual of, mine is I drink tea, I write in my journal, and I meditate.
I love that.
That's my answer to everything.
That's so amazing. Oh my gosh. I just love chatting with you. Where can people find you? Where do you want to send them? Because you got a lot happening. Where on social? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah. So my coaching is Zena, ZHENA.tv. And and Magic Hour is clubmagichour.com. And they can find that on social as well. But Club Magic Hour is my current yummy favorite thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Right now, until you have a new idea tomorrow.
Well, it's all the things I love the most combined into one thing. So each month there's a magician that comes in and teaches. So we'll have to have you come teach one month.
Oh, I love it. I'm not a magician, but I can come in.
Oh, I think you are.
Maybe.
Yeah. And so the magicians are transformational leaders. So awesome. Natalie Ledwell is teaching prosperity next month. And it's pretty exciting. So Club Magic Hour is really
so cool. So awesome, Zena. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.